The Match Ball.
Hello, welcome to the Match Ball. Dan, Michael, Moscow here with you for the Fulham away game reaction. Game finished 5 minutes ago. It's brought to you with Levi Solicitors. 10% discount on your legal fees, levisolicitors.co.uk/the square ball. And if you are on the video now, you will see Moscow holding up the most recent mag with the advert on the back. There's a 15% discount on the Phil Hay Monday Club. Have a listen there for details of the URL. Are we going down, lads?
You could scan that QR code through your screen if it wasn't blurry.
Are we going down? Possibly.
Probably.
Another passive performance, wasn't it, again? And we've lost again. I mean, we didn't lose 5 and 6-1, so is this progress? And yes, I am being facetious.
Not really, no. I mean, we've played now a team that was, at the time, down with us, Crystal Palace, failed miserably. A team that was better than us, failed miserably. And now a team with nothing to play for in the middle of the table, the sort of third category of team. And we're also useless against them.
But apart from that,
is there anything good? I'm looking to you, Moscow. You normally sort of say,
if you look at our relative outfits today, if you're on the video version, I'm wearing a black T-shirt, as is Michael. Moscow, you're like a ray of sunshine with your smiley acid face on a white long sleeve top there.
Yeah, we don't start there. Come on, I've just watched the game with you and heard you both moan constantly for 45 minutes. So
it was grim. It was grim laughter.
Yeah, but you can't just shut up now. Now is the time. Tell the people.
Well, they saw it as well.
I've heard it.
Well, you tell us why we're wrong.
You're not wrong.
Right.
Oh, okay, good.
There we go.
But you're very vocal, so don't be quiet now.
Well, I'm just vocal because I'm just bored of it being shit. I mean...
what bored you the most?
Leeds losing again. The fact that we can't pass to each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think the most exciting thing was trying to figure out what happened with that back pass, and we got an answer there, didn't we, at half-time? That wasn't a back pass. It came off Rodrigo's foot.
Yeah, I thought defensively...
Let's talk defence and Meslier then. Let's do that.
I thought defensively we did actually look better with Wöber and Cooper, albeit a lot of the defending seemed to be them sliding in at the last minute to get something. There was like a moment in the first half where Cooper gave it away, but then he was also the first man back and he was charging across and he blocked it. And I thought, good, this is sort of bodies on the line stuff where I feel like recently Strauch has been he sort of stands off a bit and he has the look of a man who thinks everything's going to be all right until it hits the net. Whereas it felt more like we were actually getting at him today. Meslier
getting back to stop him.
Yeah. But, I mean, Meslier I thought he was quite badly at fault for both of the goals. And I don't really know what to do about it.
He was by the time it got to them. What you do about it is you don't let them attack the same way twice. Where if you look at both goals, they begin with possession being turned over and Rocker and McKennie, who are supposedly our defensive midfielders, are then turning to chase the play. Fulham isolate Christensen one-on-one because he's shit.
Oh, 2-on-1 as it was.
Yep. And then the cross comes over and then Meslier can't deal with it. And so Meslier is at fault for both. He should do better with both. But if you pause a picture of the pitch like 5 seconds before it gets to him, there's just this huge space in front of our defence where I don't know what Rocker and McKennie bring to the team if they don't occupy that area and stop other teams, whether it's Liverpool, Palace, Fulham, just waltzing through it and lining up against our very weak spot and just going from there. Because both goals were exactly the same. And yeah, they both end up with Meslier fuck-ups. But what the hell is happening in front of them? There's no point in playing this defensively minded, steadier, tighter ship. If the two, like, you can't just rely on the back four and the goalkeeper to do that on their own. That's why those two are in there. And their attacking play isn't good enough for them to be all the way up the other end of the pitch. So why can't they just stand in front of the defence and let's get a 0-0 draw? Would be much more useful than watching them lumbering after Fulham's defenders and then just leaving Meslier as the last line of defence and hoping he can do something about it, which clearly at the moment, I don't think it's talent, but it's definitely confidence, and certainly the amount of work we ask him to do, he's going to make mistakes. He made 2 today. He made also 2 very good saves. I've seen, and it always comes back to the thing with Meslier, you can't defend him on the mistakes, but you can say, I've seen him do much, much better things for us than I've seen Weston McKennie do for us ever.
Yeah, they were Rocker and McKennie. I mean, McKennie was, I'd say, several degrees worse than Rocker, because Rocker did at least have the ball a few times. I feel like McKennie barely touched it. He did some chasing around. Mainly, he was quite lucky not to get himself sent off, actually, because he'd already been booked, and then someone went past him again after he'd once again miscontrolled it, and he grabbed hold of him as he went past. He let go just about in time, so he didn't get a red.
We saw lots of exciting corners, though, from Rocker. Did you enjoy that?
Got a hat-trick, didn't he? It's good.
Because the fourth one ultimately led to a goal, so his persistence paid off.
Did it ultimately lead to a goal?
Yeah, because it went the other side, and then
Bamford's clinical finish.
It was away after though, wasn't it?
Somerville passed to our most effective winger, Liam Cooper, drilled an excellent ball into the box, caused chaos, and incisive finish from Bamford from close range. So it was
denied by the conspiracy at Premier League level, etc.
It's the other thing
the bonus money.
It's the other thing that Cooper did well. Thought he did improve things at the back, and then taking some responsibility out there, drilling across when we're used to seeing them sort of just drift out of play or something. It was actually pretty effective, and also, it's levels of what you expect from play. You normally think if you're passing it to Liam Cooper on the left wing, looking for a quality cross into the box, it's not his game, but he managed to pull off something pretty well. So that was good. But yeah, the three corners were a ridiculous.
It speaks
situation.
volume about the midfield, which is a £35 million Juventus player and a £10 million Bayern Munich player that soon to be released Adam Forshaw comes on, and it doesn't depreciate the quality whatsoever.
I think he should start next game.
He should. McKennie does not deserve to be in the team.
Tom,
I know we've paid a fortune for him, but fuck me.
We haven't paid a fortune for him yet. We can get out of it by going down.
That is something we're aiming to do. And he himself is aiming to get out of it by sending us down as well.
So the master plan is falling into place. Tom Dixon, hello to Tom, get well soon, says, I don't want to condone the use of opiates, of course, because we wouldn't, but I watched that on 60 milligrams of dihydrocodeine due to a back injury. It really took the edge off it, awful as it was. It's an improvement on the last two games.
I suppose so.
You tried dihydrocodeine?
Yeah, I've had it for back stuff before. It definitely takes the edge off.
Do we have to talk about Javi Gracia now and this, as Moscow touched on there in his discussion, the passive nature of what he does, the lack of attacking substitutions, Willie Nonto not playing, who is our best player?
Certainly has been. And the persistence with Aronson as well, which was another thing that was just fucking infuriated me in the first half. Losing my right, he just goes down. He does realise that it's possible for someone to tackle him without being a foul. The fact that he seems to be looking to go down. Maybe I'm being unkind. Maybe he doesn't look to go down. Maybe he just is very, very easy to knock down. But in either case, don't put him on the fucking pitch if he can't stand up.
I think he's got a problem in that there's nobody up there with him. So he's got two options: either lose it or try and win a free kick. Because there's a couple of occasions where he's. There was one on the break, but there was maybe three defenders coming across. And it's like, unless he beats all three, which would be nice to try, he probably wasn't going to score. And there was another one where Rodrigo and Sinistera, did he start? Whoever played.
No, Sinistera didn't start.
So it must have been. So this is it. This is why I can't picture in my mind who was actually up there with him. Really, there was no way of him being able to pass to another Leeds player. So I think his mind just goes, we know that he's very. He likes to fall.
It does seem to be the first place his mind goes, though, far too often. It's just,
but then I don't know.
I'll just run over here, and I'll run it over here, and then some people will come near me, then I'll try and get a free kick.
But then the other option is I'll just stand on the ball and keep it until nothing
but if
happens.
you can hold the ball up, though, is an alternative. But because his first thought is always, I guess because of the way he's been trained in the Red Bull style, because his first thought is always get it, turn and run towards the goal.
Drive towards a penalty spot.
When he gets there and we're playing a different style and there's no one there, there's nothing to do. And also he's been doing this all season, hasn't he? So
yeah,
fine.
I did see a brilliant tweet earlier. Apologies because I can't remember the person who tweeted it, but did say that he could find a dead end in the desert. But he's just one of a number of problematic things, isn't it? I mean, it's manifested in the dissent from the away end as well, because we heard the chants just after the hour mark. We want Orta out, sack the board, Orta time to go. It's not a happy place, is it, right now?
No. Yeah, you can't really. There's the bit chance for Bielsa as well.
74 minutes that was, yeah, when we heard that. And having been ear-fucked by Jermaine Genius for...
Christ, he's awful, isn't he?
I mean, if you were lucky enough to not get Jermaine Genius and be on a different, was it like the international feed, perhaps, rather than the domestic feed in the UK, what a blessing in disguise that was to not be subjected to Jermaine Genius.
Manu says,
I feel like I'm playing the man rather than the ball here, but
Well, yeah, I mean, he says Manu should say nothing at all though. Just says things like Leeds need to be have better quality on the ball here.
Well, on that subject, because you were asking about passes, Harrison Reed, 23 accurate passes, which is 79%. Gerald Polinia was 23 accurate passes, 79%. They did exactly the same. That's pretty good going. Mark Roca, 33 accurate passes, 76%. So that's okay. And then Weston McKennie, 11 accurate passes, which is 61%. And I'd suggest, I mean, it's on the subject of Victor Orta as well, kind of, so it all relates and ties together. We probably need, like, he came in January, didn't he, to sort of help us sort all this out. And I don't think that's going to look like a very good decision in the long term.
I mean, we did probably, as it turned out, we didn't know Adams was going to get injured.
No.
We're missing him a great deal. Because people will say we're bashing Americans, and we're not bashing Americans.
If Tyler Adams was playing,
we need him.
We would, I would love to have him back. I wish and hope and dream that he can magically restore his legs, because he had the David Batty thing absolutely just sorted out at the start of the season, of wherever there is trouble, just appear and sort it, or at least be. He was quite often the second player, backing up, like he was always on the edge of whatever is happening anywhere on the pitch, ready to sort it out. Whereas, again, on the 2 goals, you're looking around for a player who is going to come back and do something about what is happening. And there's just that enormous space between the halfway line and essentially the 6-yard box, where too many teams are just doing everything. And Adams, absolutely would have faith in him to do any of this. Weston McKennie, again, if he can't do that, then his 11 accurate passes are not giving us anything else in the other direction. So
11's awful.
How many passes did he attempt? Did you have that number?
Well, that was 61%.
Right. That's got to be some sort of season low though for a central midfielder.
So that's what, 20? Is that 20 passes then?
Central midfield stuff is going through you all the time in theory.
Yeah, so that's why I looked up the Fulham ones to try and get a measure of the comparison. So they both did 21.
How many did Forshaw manage in the brief time he was on? I bet he managed 11.
So it was 23 each for the other ones.
And he was on for what, 10 minutes? Something like that. I bet he was not far off that. Although he did hit that massive long ball over the top that went out for a goal kick.
He did 7 with an 87% accuracy.
In 10 minutes?
Yeah.
So
and that's Adam Forshaw, by the way.
That percentage, by the way, just to rewind, it works out to 19 passes. 19 passes attempted, 11 successful.
Fewer than each of Fulham's midfielders completed successfully. And then 7... What was the goal? We're really going on McKennie here. So how would I work out 7 over 90 minutes? 7 times 9, isn't it?
90 divided by...
So that would come to 63.
What you...
I don't know what
you're trying to do.
Forshaw played 7 accurate passes in 10 minutes. If he was on, then you've multiplied that by 63. There is a game state argument there, because we did, in the time Forshaw was on the pitch, have more of the ball because we were attacking, and there were a couple of actual passing moves where we vaguely looked like doing some stuff. But yeah, if we'd spent 500 grand on him, and he'd come from Division 2, and Steve Evans was telling me like, he's the great midfielder who's going to sort everything out. Fine, I would say that. But with a £35 million price tag hovering, and his track record of International World Cup, Champions League, Juventus, all that kind of stuff, where is any of that?
He's not Jacob Burns, is he? He's not someone brought in on the cheap to fill a gap for a little bit. You're right to expect more from him, and I think right to expect more from Rasmus Christensen as well, because he was awful today. Every single time Willian got the ball, he had no idea where he was. Every time Christensen had the ball, he just fucking twats it forward. Every time he got it in a crossing position, just leathers it into the box. Doesn't even look if anyone's there. So frustrating.
It's almost like we recruited him just to kick the ball forward in a Red Bull style, isn't it? And he's not actually that good. What an absolute abject failure. And you look around all these players, like you were saying about Meslier in particular, and there's a lot of, there's sympathy for Meslier. There's a lot of credit in the bank for Meslier. He was undoubtedly awful on the goals today. But he is perhaps the best example of a player just wilting under the circumstances.
You can see him as a victim of it, can't you, as much as anything?
Those circumstances, but it's a failure of sort of general recruitment. This flip-flopping from Bielsa to the Red Bull style to now to this more passive sort of defensive style. It's just the whole thing has been, we've lost control of it at a kind of a management boardroom level, and it's just filtering down into the team, because who knows? It's like, what's the phrase about a camel? Is a camel a horse designed by a committee? Is that the phrase? That's what I think we're watching now. We're watching a footballing camel instead of a thoroughbred.
Do you think Grassi's job's safe?
Not at the end of the season, no.
Do you think it's safe now?
What would be gained from sacking him now? It'd show an even greater lack of control, wouldn't it?
It would, but
I
panicking.
think the committee analogy isn't quite right. It's more like one person trying to design for different people.
Yeah.
So it's, and I think the lesson with Gracia, when we had Kinnear saying, well, it always takes 9 days to find a manager, and we think we've got the right one, and ignore the other ones that we were desperately trying to convince to come, and the fact that we just ended up with somebody who would actually take the job, and that we experimented with the idea of giving it Scoobs to the end of the season. It was like, we'll just see how he gets on for as long as possible to buy ourselves some time. So they didn't come out of Marsh they came out of Marsh with a clear idea of who they wanted, but it was so utterly ridiculous, the idea that managers with things to play for, where they can win things or qualify for Europe in their own clubs, where they've spent a lot of time and put a lot of effort and investment into it. Of course, not going to come. Of course, the clubs aren't going to let them go. It's absolutely just Do you know
what that does as well? It shines a light back on. I think you might have even been saying this when you've analysed the switch from Bielsa to Marsh, is that we thought, God, he's been sacked with 12 games to go. That's far too late in the season. But it's because they had Marsh lined up anyway to take over in the summer.
Well, yeah, and so, I mean...
Who'd been sacked.
Yeah, and this all goes, like, he just happens to be available because he'd been sacked, because it wasn't working for him. I mean, this goes beyond the 90 minutes at Fulham, where he's saying, like, the reason why Rasmus Christensen is here is because when we were finishing 9th in the Premier League, Victor Orta is talking to Jesse Marsh about how he's going to take the club forward. And then we saw we either were going to see the fruits of that the summer that just happened, or, Marsh ended up coming earlier. But it's from however early Victor Orta first had his COVID Zoom calls with Jesse Marsh, that is the moment where all of this is wrong, because that's why we've got Christensen, that's why we've got Brendan Aronson, that's why the team has been lined up to play exactly as it is. And I think, and there's again, it's too big a story for right now, but you look at why players like Meslier and Gelhardt and like, you talk about drama if you want to take it all the way through. Somerville perhaps haven't really improved in a way where they look better than they did a year ago, is because they had Jesse Marsh, Cameron Toshak and Rennie Maric in charge, and we went from having a huge, like, well-organised bunch of, it's almost an in-joke, like, Bielsa had all those coaches. What were they doing? They were making all the players better, and then when they went away, it's no wonder that Ilan Meslier and Co. they all look worse. Yep. It's because we've not...
Agree completely with this.
And again, with I always hate taking a match ball into, like, the bigger pitches, but when the whole club is built on the idea of developing players so that they will increase in value, so that they can cost more money, and then you don't put the investment in to the coaching to make those players better, you just kind of go, it's that meme where you go, like, hire young players, ? Profit. We had the answer in the middle of, like, we knew how to make players better, whether it was with Bielsa or whether it was with other effective coaches with a track record in player development, and we replaced the middle part with a manager who, during the season, was doing that seminar in America, was saying, well, yeah, I'm not really big on soccer coaching. I'm more about building an environment.
Vibes,
and
baby.
It's like, just as if we expected a player like Somerville or Aronson to just improve naturally, and just that it will happen. And it's
thick as shit, isn't it?
There's an arrogance to think that we had it cracked at boardroom level. They were thinking, we've got it sorted now. We bring these players in. People like Strauch, who maybe were recruited cheaply and turned into players by players the manager wanted to use, and were improving under Bielsa, saying, well, we've got this. We're doing it. Look at Gallard.
He'll just get better.
Look at Gallard. He's the best. He's the most promising young player in the Premier League.
He's still got his pictures all over outside the club shoppers, because he's going to be the big star of this season. He'll just get better. Archie Gray, he'll just be fine. We don't have to do anything. These players will just get better.
By osmosis. Time and osmosis.
And we don't have to suffer having this cranky old weirdo making demands and wanting things changed at the training ground. Oh, he's so difficult to work with and he's so difficult to buy for. That maybe, and this was right back to the day that sacked him, maybe he was the one guy at Elland Road who knew what he was doing.
He was holding it together, wasn't he?
We would have been in it's a fantasy land, but wouldn't we have been in a better position if Bielsa at that point had said, actually, I'm sacking you and you and you, and I'll run the club and you can all go away, and I'll hire people who have more of an idea of how to run a football club than any of you.
It doesn't have to be about Bielsa either. There are many other good managers. Look at Aston Villa.
Yeah, if they had replaced him, if they'd replaced him with somebody capable who followed in the same mould, fine.
Like, and if Villa replaced Gerrard early with a good manager, and they're doing very well, and it's as simple as that.
And if Jesse Marsch, if you like his strengths, what he brings in terms of environment and leadership and atmosphere and vibes and all that stuff, you think that's great and you think that's going to be useful, give him more people to work with than Cameron Toshak and Rennie Maric, who again turned up like with a week to go before they'd seen. They weren't here in pre-season. We didn't have a full complement of coaches throughout pre-season. You didn't have an assistant manager because we were trying to get Chris Armas, and he didn't.
We got him now, though.
And we got him now. We got him in the end.
Still on the payroll, baby.
But it just became so thin in all those aspects,
and lacking quality as well.
Yeah, I mean, bless him. Like,
and that's no offense to them. It's just a reflection of the
Cameron
truth,
Toshak's experiences from the Cypriot leagues, wasn't it? So it was like Thomas Christensen take two in a slightly less senior role, but yeah, it's not like people who had been. That's one of the benefits. You're going to go back to Bielsa and other coaches who, I mean, Gracia has some staff who've worked with him for a long time. Deitch has his. We've talked about Deitch bringing his squad of people who know what they're doing. They all get it. Whereas, like Maric, and you've seen maybe from the way Maric has tweeted since he got given the heave-ho that he was trying to convince Marsch. I don't know if had they even bloody met before the start of this season. He was just like, well, this guy's got a blog and he's going to be your assistant for the rest of the year because your American pal couldn't come.
And the fact that Marsch found that acceptable seems to be a sign of weakness. I'm just talking about weakness at a leadership level. You know, we've heard sort of anecdotally that basically Marsch was gone after that series of defeats that led then into the Liverpool game. And they decided to get rid of him. But then we won the Liverpool game, then we won the Bournemouth game, and they opted not to. That's a failure of management, isn't it? It's impulsive and it's weak.
And I would put it in a similar category to the circumstances under which Bielsa was sacked, which was essentially because the Scum game, the game was rearranged, wasn't it, for the... was it the Scum game or the Liverpool game?
Because the Liverpool one fell into the midweek between the two games.
Yeah, and so it just became like, well, we can't keep getting beaten like this. Whereas if we'd had like... Well,
I've revised my opinion on that. I think we should have stuck with him, and I think he would have kept us up because he's better than anything that's followed. Because we know that Marsch would have followed and without a boardroom level plan.
Yeah, well, he was following anyway, so I guess it didn't
That's
matter.
what I mean. Yeah.
But yeah, if you'd had a dour midweek 0-0 in the middle of that, then they wouldn't have taken the decision the way that they did. And so that's all it is. I mean, that's a failure across all kind of football and Premier League management. Where even what's asking now, is Javi Gracia going to get sacked? And it's literally because, I mean, I've said this before lately, nobody has a better idea of anything to do than we'll just sack the manager. And it starts to just feel at more and more clubs, ours in particular, where you just wish you could wind the clock back and just sack the board as was being sung. But nobody can sack, because that's the advantage of being the person who owns it, is you just get to go, oh yeah, I did that really wrong, so I'm going to sack all these people who've worked really hard and done really good jobs, and I'll stay and I'll try again. Whereas, you know, Bielsa made loads of mistakes and things were going wrong, but who would you trust more to have had another crack at it the next season? Because, right, I've made loads of mistakes, but I've got the experience and the knowledge and the know-how to have another go at this and put it right. Whereas instead of him putting it right, you had the people who were much worse at things purely because they bought it.
Who is it? Big E's asking in the comments, you know, wasn't Maric Dortmund's assistant last season? He didn't come straight from the blog. He didn't. But there was no pre-established relationship, as I think.
Yeah,
the
that's
point
what I meant.
Making. Yeah,
like trying to like describe his
like plucking staff from here and there.
Yeah,
it's just chucking them all together.
More the point that I don't think him and
Marsch
had any like pre-existing relationship. So it immediately starts up with like, well, what do you want to do? Well, I don't know. What ideas have you got? Whereas, you know, it's the I don't think Deitch is doing as good a job as people think he is at Everton, but he is, at least he doesn't have to sit down with Ian Wallen and Steve Stone and go like, right, here's how
you might not agree with the plan and it might not work, but at least there is a plan, and I don't think there was there. But let's bring it back to today and talk about
that was good.
What Gracia's, well, that's why we had the match ball. Let's reflect on the match. And he's been saying that today we tried to be more aggressive in our pressure. This is Javi. Recover more balls in the opposition half. The first half was equal. We didn't create many chances, but we didn't suffer. But in the second, after the first goal, it was tough for us. He's worried about everything. Third defeat in a row. We have to improve. We have a very, very important game in 3 days, and we have to be ready. He's not wrong.
I think it might be quite tasty on Tuesday, depending on how things go.
What, in an anarchy sense?
Yeah. It feels like it's just ready to turn to me. I feel like if we go a goal behind, it's going to get poisonous very, very quickly in that one.
Yep.
Yeah, to go back to the battle in midfield and the pressure we're applying and stuff. LUFC Data have tweeted about McKennie, and he won 3 tackles, 3 out of 7 ground duels, 2 fouls, 10 times possession lost. Brilliant.
Well, he's been asked
money well spent.
He's been asked in the post-match about this, and he's refusing to comment on individually on McKennie and Aronson struggling again. Is it time to change midfield? He's been asked, and he's not commenting on it.
Yes.
But who do you put in? Beyond Forshaw, who do you put in?
Put Forshaw in.
Yeah.
I mean, genuinely, you couldn't be worse than McKennie was today. He was fucking horrendous. He did nothing at all. I couldn't point to a single thing he did well in that game. At one point, he did okay, having already lost the ball, and he was like rolling around on the floor and managed to get a foot in.
That was because he'd been really asleep when the pass was played to him, and he's very easy to knock off the ball. And
just strange, given he has the physicality of a weeble.
Yeah, it's just so I don't know if JB's good enough or whether it's fair to throw him in, but he exists.
We've reached that point where we're searching for the other to fix it.
We reached that point last season as well, where it was kind of like, well, Sam Greenwood exists, so we'll have to put him in, and he did well. Like, you can't really complain about anything Greenwood brought to it last year. He was fine.
And it's about expectations as well, because Greenwood was thrown in last year. Granted, he wasn't perfect, but he was also a young player we picked up for about £1 million, who was a striker a year before, who was playing in midfield, who was doing his best. McKennie has been playing for a Champions League club and has been an established international midfielder for years. So you're quite right to expect a hell of a lot more from him.
I think it's got to be Forshaw against Leicester, though, assuming his fitness holds up, because a little bit like Cooper and Verber, I mean, I don't know, we'll go back to that. It's like, it's the passion and who wants it more. But he's got the experience, the knowledge, and the commitment to what we're doing. And it's been around long enough that I just have more confidence in.
He's a known quantity.
Yeah, and so I think he's more likely to. The difference that Cooper did make, even with the odd stray lunge and the odd interesting pass, but. He was
interesting is a great euphemism,
but he did bring something better to what was missing against old Liverpool and Palace. So I'd add Forshaw to the mix and let the sort of the Grizzly. I'd have Ayling back as well. Let's just get as many. See if Berardi wants it. Bring Pablo back for a bit. Just get it as Champo as possible.
Champo, because
those players did get us up, and they. A bunch of, I suppose, Forshaw was injured, wasn't he, at the end of last year? But yeah, the players who've been through it, I have more faith in them than the players we've signed this season. But Verber has immediately put himself to the front of the queue, and
just looking at with the Forshaw chat, I just thought to see if Radrazani's tweeted. He hasn't.
I think one of the things that I find
3 points in the bag was his last tweet, which you can work out for yourself.
Can we get
when that was.
Can we get Click on loan? Because that's the other thing with. Aronson and how we fucked ourselves over this season, because the ideal world, like, yeah, you take Aronson out because he's 22 and he's clearly struggling, a bit like Meslier. The pressure, the physicality, the amount of work he's having to do. Aronson has played, I think Meslier and Aronson have probably played more games than any of our other players, and they're both 22. So ideal world, I don't know about giving Meslier a break. Goalkeepers are a bit of a funny thing, but the alternative to Aronson was Click, and we never played him, and we let him go to the USA when he, at the start of the season, was quite happy to play the entire season.
And right now, if you could swap him back, you would.
Well, you would, because Click, it's that known quantity thing, and it's also that Aronson is clearly struggling, and so, I mean, he's got a 5-year contract or something. Fair enough. Get Click back in there. Give Aronson the break he probably should have had straight after the World Cup, and start again with him next season, and just see how he goes from there. It's not about ruling people out forever, because we had that with Click in his first season, where we ended up back on loan in the Netherlands. Returned, was brilliant. Aronson could be brilliant next season, but at the moment he's just suffering, toiling, contributing very little, whereas Click is just a too good a player to just wave away. And it's not how you develop players. Like how many, like, could we sell Aronson for more today than we signed him for? I mean, football's a bit mad like that, maybe pure inflation, but that's the whole point of him being here, is the idea that, oh yeah, he's sign a 21-year-old and in 5 years or 3 years they'll be worth multiples of what you paid. Well, not if you just let them wilt.
I must admit, there was a point in that half watching Aronson and watching Wilson. I was trying to imagine a time when football is played by 11 of them on either side, and you just get the spectacle of 22 men rolling about on a pitch, looking at the trying to look at the referee all at once.
What's happening with Willie here, by the way? Because big boy Bok Choi is asking, why do you think Gracia took so long to put on the bowling ball that is Nonto? I have to say, if there's not an injury there, or if he's still not coming back from this injury, it's starting to get into baffling territory, isn't it? When you can see so many out of form players.
Mm-hmm. I've no idea.
That's why I think it's got to be injury, because I don't think Gracia is that complicated. I don't think there's any. I don't think he's the type to be playing like weird psychological games. It's a bit. It's awkward. It was good when Gracia turned up and it's like, I'm not going to comment on injuries. And we're like, great, he's so quiet. And now it's like, tell us what's going on. We want X-rays of his ankle. We want everything. So it's funny how quickly.
But you always want the other thing, don't you? Whatever you're doing is wrong.
Well, exactly that. I mean, we want, as part of why we want Gnonto is just. I mean, he came on, a couple of nice moments. Maybe he's coming on too late to be an influence, but maybe he's not enjoying not being used, and maybe he is injured, but he's not made the impact he was making.
He's addressed it actually as Javi in the post match.
What's he saying? He says he hates his guts. He says he hates that little guy,
little bastard. He says too good. Yeah, no, he said
sick of him smiling all the time.
When he's asked on him not being used, I can tell you the same, that I have to decide right. All the players are, in my opinion, doing well. Glance to camera. You ask about Gnonto, I have to answer. You always miss players who don't play. So it's the same as us saying that, like, you always want the thing that's not in the side. The problem is the evidence points to him being our best player.
I mean, on the players who you want inside who aren't as well, it's the Rodrigo Bamford thing as well, because you watched Rodrigo for an hour today and thought, fucking hell, he's useless. Like, it was one of those games. Admittedly, we didn't give him much of a sniff, did we? There were no presentable chances for him, which is what you have him in the side for, isn't it? But there were points where equally we were trying to hoof balls forward and you couldn't see him because he dropped back into midfield and he was doing that sort of stuff. But then, don't fucking just pass it to nobody.
I've got to pick up on Mole's comment on YouTube, who says Gracia really likes Aronson's pressing. It fits the non-pressing tactic. Which I think sums up where we are at the minute, doesn't it, really? Dear me.
He manages to press himself, does Aronson, doesn't he? Though? he runs himself, he harries himself into a corner, and upon which point he falls over and loses the ball. So it doesn't do anyone any good.
I mean, one of the things about Rodrigo not making an impact in that game, and whether we gave him enough, if you think about McKennie making 11 accurate passes, that's less than 6 per half. So it's kind of, what is Rodrigo getting out of midfield? Our defence isn't getting any help out of midfield. Our attack isn't getting any forward passes out of midfield. Nobody's getting anything out of midfield. Rocker's shaved his head. I suppose that helps.
Yeah, echoes of Champions League semi-final there. Apart from the ones who are either getting married or in court.
Yeah.
But let's not get into that story for a different day. Should we wrap it up and just say, see you on Tuesday, Victor?
Victor, see you next Tuesday.
We'll beat Leicester, so it's going to be fine.
Hope so, Moscow.
What's going to happen now? So just to run through. So the time is whatever it is.
3:12 it is.
It says on my screen here.
Yes.
So I don't know why. So
0-0 in all the other games.
No, it's Leicester 0, Wolverhampton 1.
Oh, is it? Excellent. That is good news.
And Palace are going to beat Everton. Liverpool will beat Forest. So that's good. And then tomorrow, I know I was having a go at people making predictions, but it's funny when I do it. And then Bournemouth, West Ham, both clubs will be closed.
Okay.
That's tomorrow's fixtures. Tomorrow's news today.
I mean, that's the best outcome from the weekend is that we're no worse off than we were at the start of it. I know Southampton gained a point on us and looked far more capable, and they could actually pass to each other. Did you notice that?
Yeah,
I didn't watch it. It's too stressful.
Yeah. Bit more than we did today. But if we come out of it with the gap the same, I guess it just eats up another fixture. That's the best hope we've got now, is just other people being shitter than us. Great fun, isn't it? Right, we'll wrap it up there. We'll speak to you soon.
The Match Ball.